Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is James, and I'm continuing on with this build of the Barnstormer 25S vintage RC airplane. So what I did off camera, so I basically am done with all the major construction steps of the build. And my last video was sort of on the long side, so I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter on this one. And so what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to finish putting on the ailerons. As you can see here, I already put on the aileron on the left side of the plane. And in this video, I'm going to finish up and put the aileron, to put the right side aileron on. And then I have just kind of a handful of things I have to do to sort of finish up with the build before I get into kind of putting in the guts, which is going to be the servos and the engine, the tank, and that type of thing. So this video is going to be sort of like a variety of smaller steps. I'm going to put the front landing gear on. I'm going to hinge the fuel tank hatch. I'm going to put the dowels on for the rubber bands that hold the wing on the fuselage. Of course, finish the ailerons, and I may put the decals on the wing. So I have a few things like that, and so I'm getting close. The build is getting coming along pretty nicely, and I'm happy to be this far along with it. So let's go ahead and move on to the aileron and finish this up. All right, so as I noted, I already put the left aileron on, and you can see it works pretty good. This was just using the CA hinges, and then the little the control linkage, which has this sort of I guess that's let me move it around this way. So the control linkage, as we know from the previous steps, is just a short wire like this, and it's got this little kind of spike. If I can get that in there, this little spike that's going to go into a hole on the aileron itself. And I already cut the and drilled the hole for it, and I also grooved it out, so you can see kind of right in there. So there's the hole, and then I had to groove it out a little bit because I have to make room, because a little bit of this this control linkage is sort of like halfway in the wing and halfway out of the wing, and it's covered. So I need to make a little bit more room for that to work. And then the CA hinges, I already slotted them, and I put the just these little pins in to help keep them centered. So I know when I put them in there where the center is and where they're going. Also, it gives the a little bit of the gap that we need so that it has sort of the freedom to move. So what I haven't done, but I did mark on the trailing edge, I did mark the locations for the hinges, and then I drilled the holes in the middle like I did before, and the holes are there just to help the CA soak down better, but I still have to slot the locations. So that's what I'm going to do right now. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with this one back here, or actually in the tip here, and carefully, I'm going to just go very carefully slot this through here. This one was being a little bit of a bugger. I had to work with it to get it in there. If I just keep one little hinge, I can use my test hinge. Okay, it's a lot of work there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do these next three. Again, very carefully. I kind of score it. Start by scoring it. Then I kind of like to just very carefully back and forth. There we go. And sometimes it's helpful just to go ahead and go straight down like that, and then over. Same thing on this side, go straight down like that. My test hinge. Okay. Okay, so I got all 4 of those slotted. Balsa wood's kind of interesting because sometimes it's really soft in places, sometimes it's a little bit harder. And these 2 went in really nicely. These other ones over here were a little bit difficult to get them in. They're a little bit harder wood. All right, so we're good with that. Let me find my aileron. And now we can place the aileron on here. Let's see here. It's kind of tricky because it's very long, and kind of have to kind of work it in, kind of slide it down at the same time. You don't want to bend or crimp the your CA hinges if you can avoid it. You've got to be very careful. So I'm going to start by putting it here, this side here. There we go. All right. And having the pin there helps keep it from, obviously it helps keep the CA hinge from moving up into the aileron or the other surface, depending on which way you're moving. Helps keep it from sliding on you. Okay. This one I'm going to have to use my tweezers because I have a little bit of a bend in there. So I'm going to try to just hold the tweezer, try to tweezers help push it in for me. Okay. This guy's being a little troublesome. All right, that guy was kind of bending on me a little bit, so I had to work it in there. Okay, so there we go. That's on there. Should be good to go here. All right. So now we can take our little pins out. Pin jar. And we should be good to go. Okay. All right, so let me get my CA and we'll glue it on. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start with where the control horn goes in. I could use epoxy on this also. I think this is gonna be okay. Whoops. Boy, it comes out of there really fast. Let me put that in there first. Get that one set. Here. Okay, so you just kind of soak them, about 3 or 4, maybe 5 drops, I don't know. What happens is this gets really stiff when you first put them on. And you have to just kind of work them a little bit. I don't know if I even need to go on both sides. They always say, you know, put them on both sides, but really you hit it pretty hard, it's going to soak from one side. All right. Okay, that's good. It's in there. Okay, so we got the ailerons on now. Now these are, like I said, these are kind of stiff and they're going to have to be worked. Loosen them up to sort of get them more flexible. But you can see the wing is pretty much finished except for the decals and except for the obviously the servo hookup. So you know, there's the wing. All right, so I have a couple things on the fuselage. So I'm going to go ahead and hinge the fuel tank hatch, and I'm going to do that with epoxy. And since I'm going to have the epoxy, since I'm mixing epoxy, I'm going to go ahead and also install the kind of rubber band dowels. And these dowels are made for the wing, to hold the wing on, and they just slide in. They just slide in here like this. On both sides, on the front and the back. So we'll get those lined up, and then I'll epoxy those on, and then also the hinges. So this will kind of kill two birds with one stone when it comes to the epoxy that I have to mix up. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just use my 30-minute epoxy on this, just because I do like to have the working time with it. Okay, since I am using an actual kind of mechanical hinge, obviously I need to be careful that I don't get epoxy on that little pin right there. So I just need to be especially careful with that. So I'm going to try to get the epoxy. I'm going to work on the hatch first, and I'm going to just try to get it inside the slot. I've cut my stick. I thinned my stick out so it's very thin so I can get it in the slot. So I'm going to just work some of this epoxy down inside there. Try not to make a big mess. Then I'll wipe it off before I put the hinge in. I'm just going to work it in there. And this actually is not going to, this doesn't have to be a super strong bond because the magnet's going to hold it really nicely, really well. So I'm just going to be very careful. A little bit on the tip of the hinge here. Let me wipe this off in here now. Oops, just wiped off my hinge. Okay, we'll slide this one in. Okay, a little bit on there, so I'm going to drag it back. Okay, it's right about there. Okay, now we'll do the other one. Okay, put this in there. Then I can always go back once I get it all on there. I can go back with a Q-tip and kind of clean off the hinge itself with a little bit of acetone. Another way to do this, I think, is to put a little bit of oil on those, but that's good like that. So let's go ahead and put the some epoxy in the on the fuselage side. You can't really see this, but I'm just going to put it in here. All right, that's not going to go anywhere. Take the excess off the front here. Pop this in. There we go. Just like that. Okay, good. Take a quick look at it and make sure that it's not, I don't have any blobs of epoxy on there. Okay, now I can install the dowels. And for this, I'm just going to epoxy, because these are up against the firewall. If you look and if you can kind of see that inside there, they're right up against the firewall, and not the firewall. I'm sorry, the bulkheads in here. So I can epoxy up against those locations and the hole itself. So I'm just going to work some epoxy in here now. Once I get the epoxy on, I'll line them up. And same for this side. Oops. Ooh. Stuff really is setting up quickly. This wasn't 30 minutes. This was, maybe I put too much hardener on it. Okay, so we have our the dowels are now in here, and what I'll do once this cures up, I'll go ahead and I'm gonna I'll trim around the monocoat, because you can kind of see I had to make, there's the monocoat, the holes, I kind of cut them out, and it's kind of real regular. So I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and I will clean those up. And then I'm probably going to just paint these. I'll just paint these little dowels. Probably just use some black paint to kind of cover them up. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the landing gear on. So the landing gear came as 2 wires that go like this, go like that, and they mount inside here. If you remember from the earlier video, I put that block in, landing gear block. So I need to, I've already cut the monocoat away from where they mount, And I am going to put some epoxy. I'm not going to put too much epoxy on this. In fact, I was kind of thinking maybe I wouldn't epoxy at all. They do come, the kit does come with a little, these little kind of brackets, or these little retainers. Let me pull this out of here. And those hold the landing gear on. These little guys right here. Those are going to screw into this block of wood. Okay, so I did have to sort of work with this a little bit to clean it out. I had the 2 holes in the blocks, the hardwood blocks that I put on when I originally constructed the fuselage. I did get a little bit of epoxy sort of in those, so I had to clean them, kind of drilled them out, and I cleaned out this little channel that's in here, this little channel that's made for the wire. So everything fits pretty good now. So I am gonna, I decided I will go ahead and put epoxy on this and to glue these in. And then once those are in and it's all dried up, I'll come back and I'll put the little brackets on those for the additional support. And so for this one, I'm just going to use my 5-minute epoxy because I don't think I need a lot of working time with it. Just going to drip some down inside the hole itself. Okay. So these will pop in here like this. Press those down. Good. Now I'm going to come back. This looks like a mess right now. It's really because I'm working with it. I kind of pulled some of the monocoat up over here, and this is. But I will come back and I'll clean this up, and then I'm going to cover that again with another little strip of monocoat to kind of clean it up nicely. But for now, this is good like that. All right, so I'm going to leave it here and finish up this video. So I did the landing gear. The front landing gear is pretty much installed. I do need to come back and put on these little kind of retainer clip things. They're not really clips, these little brackets, I don't know. And I will clean up the bottom of it. I will have to go over the plane, and I'm going to cover this with monocoat again, the part that I cut off, just to kind of clean it up nicely. And also overall, the whole plane, you know, as you work on it, when you're working on it, sometimes the monocoat gets sort of pulled and pushed and things like that. So I will do a final kind of once over with the monocoat for the whole plane. Like I mentioned, I'm going to paint the dowels. I'll paint these little rubber band retaining dowels. I'll probably paint them black. And then of course here's our the hatch, which is now hinged on here nicely. Okay, well that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.